What the hell is up, everybody? Louie back here again for another excellent weekend of fights. International Fight Week, UFC 276. No Vegas this weekend. Big pay-per-view, big fights, big stakes, big stages, big stars. Can't wait. Quick recap last weekend. Record was so-so, but I finally won some money. Not proud of myself, but I had to dump 400 on Shavkat, and thank God he got it done. TJ Brown, excuse me, yeah, that was a bad bet for me, minus 200. Shouldn't have done that one. And then Alan Badeau and Josh Parisian, shouldn't have bet on that one. Badeau had it in the bag and fumbled it. But, you know, Thiago Moises came through, and that was nice to see him get a win, bounce back. And then, obviously, the main event. I fight that close. I should have known better. I just really thought Sarukian's power was gonna be enough to stifle Gamrot and maybe get an early finish or something like that, but no, Gamrot shined in the later rounds. But it was an excellent fight card, but no fans. Now it's in Vegas and it's crazy. It's a whole celebration. I can't wait. Where do I start? You got Israel Adesanya taking on Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier for the 185-pound strap. And then in the co-main event, you got Max Holloway taking on Alexander Volkanovsky, number 3 for the featherweight title. And then you got Sean Strickland taking on Alex Pereira, pretty much a number 1 contender spot for the 185-pound belt. And there's even better fights on there. You got Robbie Lawler, you know. You got Cowboy Cerrone taking on Jim Miller. So let's just jump into it real quick. Dive in this bitch. 135 pounds, women's bantamweight. You got Jessica Rose Clark taking on Julia Stoliarenko. First fight of the night. Rose Clark took on Stephanie Edgar her last fight. I noticed that in that one she was able to duck and then she landed the overhands whenever she got pressed. She landed her right to the body and then she's able to get but she gets body locked and she gets hip tossed, but she's able to keep that wizard really defend. But then she gets tossed again. She gets put into a scarf hold and then Edgar is able to transition to an armbar. But you know, Jessica is rolling, trying to get out of it. Maybe not the greatest defense, but she brings her leg over the head, and then she kind of rolls through. Big mistake, though, and Edgar has the classic armbar, back to the mat, submits. But, you know, what are you going to do? And then before that, she took on Jocelyn Edwards. She looked pretty good in this fight. First couple rounds, she lands a jab, then a 1-2, and then she gets a body lock, outside trip takedown, and then she starts walking through some jabs, and then she gets a body lock into a high crotch crackdown position, and then she rolls through, and she gives up her back standing, though, but no big deal. And then she eats a body kick and a 1-2 at range, but then she shoots, and she's able to get the double, and then stay in the clinch and get the back trip. Then the second round, she just spams the jab and goes to the clinch. So that's basically her move. And just got to hope nobody hits her with an armbar. Julia Stoliarenko took on Alexis Davis her last fight. In the first round, she gets taken down off of a push kick attempt, and then she tries the armbar. And it's actually really deep, but can't really secure it. And then the second round, she moves in and out with the jab, but she eats a 1-2. And then she lands a step, backs up out of range. Then she lands a step-in jab, the 1-2, not too much going on. Then in the third round, she gets dropped to the leg kick when she's coming in to throw a jab. And then she tries to set up her armbar, but she eats some ground and pound from full guard on the ground. So, you know, is what it is. Julia Stoliarenko plus 145, Jessica Rose Clark minus 170. Yeah, dude, I'm really struggling on this one, but last weekend, I forgot one of the biggest dogs on the card, Vanessa Demopoulos, she won. She was like over plus 200, and I was going back and forth, and guess what she has? An armbar. And this weekend, Julia Stoliarenko has the armbar, so I really don't know. But Jessica Rose Clark minus 170. All she does is clinch. That's really all she does. And she got Smith armbar her last fight, and Stoliarenko has a decent armbar. So I'm going Julia Stoliarenko plus 145. Lock it in. Who cares? Next fight on the prelims, 125 pounds, women's flyweight. You got Jessica Evil Eye taking on Macy, the future Barber. This should be a fun scrap. Jessica Eye took on Jennifer Maya her last fight. In the first round, she presses her, she pumps her jabs, and then she leans out of the way of shots, a little bit, you know, kind of leaving her chin out there, but she's leaning back. But then she rips to the body, but eats a knee. But then she lands a wild hook, but she eats a straight shot, and then she's able to get the takedown at the end of the round with the overhook up against the cage. Then in the second round, she presses, but she gets taken down off of her kick. she gets a takedown off her kick, but she's not able to hold Jennifer down there very long. But then she eats a right cross whenever she's jabbing, and then she eats a hook at range, but she starts landing some leg kicks of her own, which is really nice. And then she eats some hooks in a firefight, but she's able to get to the clinch, so she doesn't just stand there and get her face punched in. She tries to go for the clinch if she's not in the advantageous position. Then in the third round, she eats a step in right cross, but then she dips the hook, and then she's able to land a body shot on Jennifer. But then she lands an uppercut whenever they're scrapping on the inside, and then she gets a body hook to the clinch, but doesn't really do too much. Sorry, she lands a body hook and then goes to the clinch, but can't really do too much. Close fight. I thought Jennifer won though. And then Maycee Barber took on Montana De La Rosa, her last fight. Really good performance from Maycee, actually. In the first round, she lands feints with the overhand, and she tries to go for the clinch, and then clinch trip, but she actually pulls her on top of her, but she's able to get right back up. A little mistake there in the beginning of the fight, and then she's able to keep the clinch against the fence. But then she breaks out of the clinch, she lands some hooks, and then she regains the clinch, and then she lands some punches in the clinch, which I really like to see. She's making it a dirty fight, and, you know, doing what she needs to do to win and not afraid to get punched. And I like seeing that. Then in the second round, they go into a clinch battle, and she gets merkled, where you kind of like a headlock position, then they pull it through, and then they have a hook in, but both their chests are facing the same way, if that makes sense. Kind of hard to explain. But she gets her back taken, but she's able to swim out of it and get on top, and then get in half guard, and did some work down there, so that was good. And then in the third round, she's able to work into the clinch with some hooks, throws a hook, gets to the clinch, and then she's able to get around the back standing and get some hook and land some hooks. And then she's able to drag her down from the back. She can't hold her down there, but then back on the feet, she goes right back to the collar tie and just pressures. And she did what she needed to do to win the fight, and it was a really good performance from her. Take a look at the line, though. Maycee Barber minus 285, Jessica Eye plus 240. This line's insane, and I was not confident at all in Maycee Barber because I thought she lost to Miranda Maverick, but this performance against Montana De La Rosa was exactly what she needed. She looked really good. She improved in some positions. She made that mistake at the beginning, but she made it dirty. She wasn't afraid to get punched. I like seeing that. And Jessica Eye, she's just a little too wild. I think she might be able to catch Maycee with something. I don't think she's going to knock her out. I think Maycee has better clinch work, and I think she'll be able to get her to the ground at some point. I see maybe Maycee losing the first round. So if you want to, I'm going to bet on Maycee. I would bet live after the first round. But my pick here is Maycee Barber. The line's insane, but it is what it is. You just got to place it, I guess. Main event of the early prelims, 185 pounds. You got Uriah Hall taking on Andre Muniz. I'm really excited for this fight. This is like my low-key banger of the card. Uriah Hall took on Sean Strickland his last fight in the main event. In the first round, he gets backed up with some jabs, and he misses his overhand shots. Then he lands a leg kick, and then he lands a right cross off of Sean's jab when they're inside the pocket. But he dips in, and he's able to land a shot to the face and to the body of Sean, but it doesn't do too much. Just kind of gets backed up most of the round. Then in the second round, he gets pushed back with some jabs again, but he eats some longer combos. Sean starts adding on to his combination off of his jab, but then he's able to stuff the double leg attempt off the fence, but then he gets clinched by Sean, and then he comes forward with some overhands, but they're just too short, and Sean just kind of sliding out of the way. And then in the third round, he eats overhand right in the pocket, but then he gets body locked and taken down. I guess it was kind of a clash of heads or whatever. Uriah Hall just kind of froze there, but fair play. The ref let it go on, and then gets taken down with that, and he stands up, but he gets dragged back down, and he gives up his back to end the third round. Then fourth and fifth round, kind of more the same, but it's only a three-round fight. Then Andre Muniz took on Eric "Your Boy" Anders his last fight. In the first round, he stands at range, and he backs out of the jab from Eric, and he pushes off the clinch attempt, and then he pushes off the clinch attempt from Eric. That's kind of what Eric does, so like jab and go for the clinch, and Andre wasn't having any of it. Then he lands some hooks and a blast double from the pocket, gets right into half guard, and then Eric gets back to his feet, he gets around his back standing, puts his right leg in, and he pulls him down. Then he gets both hooks in, has his back at this point, and then he kind of slides off the back, but he's able to get the armbar, belly to the mat, finishes it like butter. Really good win for him because Eric is no walkover. So Andre Muniz is minus 320 and Uriah Hall plus 265. The line's a little bit disrespectful, but I just don't see how Uriah Hall wins. Respectfully, he's a head case, and you know, if something goes wrong, it seems like he has a really hard time pushing through and coming back from a deficit. Also, I think he'll be able to get taken down. Sean Strickland at the greatest wrestler. Sean Strickland got him down a couple times, and Andre is just too slick. I think I can see him getting Uriah's back. I think a submission is in play here. Andre Muniz minus 320 straight up, and submission minus 120. Not the best odds, but I really think it's going to be submission. So Andre Muniz. On to the first fight of the regular prelims. On ABC, by the way, 185 pounds, men's middleweight. You got Brad Tavares taking on Dricus du Plessis. Tavares took on Omar Akhmedov his last fight. First round, he lands some jabs at range, but he gets countered with some body hooks, kind of typical. But then he gets blast doubled, but he gets right back up, and he stays clinched. But I really like seeing that out of him. And then he's moving in and out, lands some leg kicks, and he's able to defend the single, lands a 1-2 whenever he gets pressed. Second round, they're in a pocket exchange. He gets taken down with a double and then clinch, but, you know, right back up again. And then he starts landing some more leg kicks, turning it up a little bit. And then he gets pressed with some straights in the pocket, but then he eats a straight right off of his leg kick. And then in the third round, he's able to drop him right away, beginning of the round with a leg kick. And he lands some step-in jabs. He's kind of missing, but he eats some leg kicks. But then he's able to stuff the double leg attempt. Omari's pretty tired at this point. Then he lands some jabs at range, and then he's able to slip the punches, get inside, land 1-2 and a head kick, and then a step-in uppercut. So really strong performance from him, I think. And, you know, Omari, a decent wrestler, I guess. And then Dricus du Plessis took on Trevin Giles his last fight. In the first round, he lands some body and leg kicks at range. He gets pressed with straight shots, but he shows up, circles out, blocks most of it. And then he lands a step-in lead hook. Then he lands a jab, and then gets a double off the fence, gets in a full mount, able to take his back. And he goes for like a leg, like a Sulayev stretch, I believe. Dumb decision in my opinion. And then Trevin's able to stand right back up. But then and then Trevin's kind of in on a double, but he's able to sweep him with a Kimura, so that was nice out of him, but he didn't need to be there in the first place. And then in the second round, he gets pressed with some jabs, and then he lands a jump knee, and then he steps in like leg kicks, but he rushes forward, and he misses with his shots, a little wild there. Then he gets pressed with some elbows and hooks, but he lands a straight right off of the fence and gets a KO, kind of shelling up and just boom, uses the fence and momentum. It was pretty impressive. Dricus du Plessis minus 145, Brad Tavares plus 125. I think it's a good underdog spot. I'm going to go with Brad Tavares. Not a big underdog, but this kind of feels right. I think du Plessis is kind of a big shot kind of guy. I think Tavares is going to get stronger as the fight goes on. He's able to stuff the takedowns decent enough, I guess. And I think he'll be able to make du Plessis miss. So I like Tavares plus 125, not a bad spot. Brad Tavares, lock it in. City Kickboxing, I guess. Second fight of the prelims, 170 pounds. Ian Garry taking on Gabe Green. Ian Garry took on Darian Weeks his last fight. In the first round, he's able to drop him with a leg kick right away. And then he's able to, on the outside, land a step-in, circles around the outside, lands a step-in jab, then a 1-2. And then he jabs him against the fence, but he gets clinched, and he gives up his back standing, but nothing crazy. And then he skirts the fence, lands a question mark kick, and some jabs, so decent round for him. Second round, he stands at range, lands some jabs and a 1-2, but then he gets clinched and he eats some elbows, but he's able to break out of there, doesn't take too much damage. Third round, he circles, lands some jabs, and then a front face kick, and then he lands a 1-2 and a head kick, and then he rocks him with the 1-2. Doesn't really hurt him, but, you know, enough to get judges noticing at least. Whenever Gabe Green presses forward, and then he's able to stuff the double leg attempt, and he's able to get the clinch, and then he hits a slide by and gets around his back. Nothing crazy, but decent performance from him, finished it up strong, so faced a little adversity. Then Gabe Green took on Johan Lenice his last fight. In the first round, he works his way in with a double jab, but he eats some leg kicks while he's doing it, but he gets pressed, and he gets rocked with the overhand right. But he's able to back out of range, and he lands a jab, and he's able to start making Lenice miss. Decent head movement and just kind of circling, and then he gets blast doubled on the fence, but he's able to get right back up. So but not that Gary's really a wrestler, but he presses with a straight right, but he eats some hooks for his trouble. But then in the second round, he lands a 1-2, then a body kick. Then he gets dropped with the overhand right, but he's able to use it, keeps the underhook and gets back up. And not good that he got dropped, but it's really good he got up right away and had the wherewithal to keep the underhook. So I like seeing that. And then he walks through some punches, but he slips the hooks, and then he lands a front kick and then a jump knee, and then he lands some body hooks and he drops them with some body kicks, and then gets a TKO because Lenice was just exhausted. So I really like seeing that. Gabe Green plus 150 and Ian Garry minus 175. And I've been going back and forth on this one. I really want to fade Ian Garry every chance I get, but this line is somewhat reasonable. And I'm just really not impressed with what I saw by Gabe Green, unfortunately. You know, he just got dropped like in the second round. I thought it was going to be over, and you know, Lenny's kind of tired himself out there. So, but I did like his wherewithal. Got to respect that. I still think he's live underdog, but I just think Gary's going to be able to jab, stick and move, circle. Might hit him with a big shot, might rock him, might drop him, might even get the KO. But I really think if Gary wins, it's going to be by decision. So Gary straight up, minus 175. Gary by decision, plus 180. Ian Gary. Onto the co-main of, the co-main of the regular prelims, 170 pounds. Jim Spartan Miller taking on Donald Cowboy Cerrone. I think it should be the main event of the prelims, but whatever, dude. Jim Miller took on Nicholas Mata his last fight. In the first round, he slips a jab, lands a step in 1-2, and then a head kick at range, but he gets rocked with a counter hook. But he's okay, he's Jim Miller. And then he lands some inside leg kicks, and then he eats some short punches while he's coming in, but doesn't really care. And then he lands Superman punch, gets the clinch. Second round, he lands more inside leg kicks, and then he drops him with the step in right hook and ground and pound pretty early on in the second round. So really good performance from him. And Jim Miller's been taking on these people making their UFC debuts that are really hyped up, and he's been making them look foolish. So gotta respect that. Oh yeah, and this fight's up at 170. You know, just because. And then Cowboy Cerrone took on Alex Morono his last fight. It's a little while ago actually, but this was at 170. The first round he ducks the straight shot from Morono. Then he gets a clinch walks all the way toward the fence, but he gets reversed in the clinch position. But then he eats some hooks in the head kick in a pocket exchange. But he lands a body kick whenever he gets pressed. That's something to look out for. But then he ducks the straight right from Morono, and he clinches, but he gets reversed and taken down with the trip, but Morono lets him up for some reason. And then he gets rocked with a right cross while he's just standing at range. And then he walks into some jabs, and then he gets rocked with a straight right, and then just gets TKO'd with a flurry. Morono just jumped on him. He looked okay, but, you know, Morono's not really a knockout power guy, and he lost to Anthony Pettis. So, but Donald Cowboy Cerrone plus 165, Jim Miller minus 195. Now this fight's pretty weird. Cowboy Cerrone then had the Lozon fight scheduled twice on 2 different pay-per-views, I believe, and it fell through both times. First time, Cowboy got sick. Last time, Joe Lozon's knee locked up. So he literally cut weight to 155 like 2 weeks ago, so they did it at 170, understandable. But, you know, even I hear people are saying it's up at 170, Cowboy Cerrone's going to have the power advantage. I don't think it matters that much, man. I really don't. You know, Jim Miller's really good in the first round, and Donald's been getting knocked out in the first round, so I can really see Jim Miller getting a knockout here. Minus 195, a little high, but I really think this fight's a no-brainer, man. It's one of those, like, weird, it's like one of those fuck-it matchups, I guess you'd say, where kind of might be a slot fest. You got some older guys in there, up a weight class, who knows, but I like Jim Miller by KO plus 275, or Jim Miller by finish at all, plus 110. Lock it in, Jim Miller. On to the main event of the regular prelims, 155 pounds. Brad Riddell taking on Jalen, the Tarantula Turner. That's terrifying. Brad Riddell took on Rafael Fiziev his last fight. In the first round, he lands some step-in jabs, but he eats some overhands in return, but then he eats a body kick. But he lands some jabs and overhand right while he's moving backwards, but then he misses a step-in overhand, then he eats a hook from Fiziev, but then he feints a leg kick and he lands a right and left hook combination. So turning it on the end of the first a little bit. Then in the second round, he has his back towards the fence, then he lands a step-in left hook, and then they both land left hooks in exchange, and there's a lot of pocket exchanges here. I guess you'd say Fiziev gets the better of them, but there's some times where they're just swinging at each other, and then he gets an overhand, and keeps the collar tie, and he tries to shoot, kind of, but he eats a counter right hook off of his left hand. Then in the third round, he lands a step-in body kick, but he eats a hook, and then he gets the double off of Fiziev's leg kick, and then he gets around the back, but then he just kind of lets him up, and then he gets just kind of standing at range, just gets KO'd with the wheel kick. Pretty brutal, but you know, I thought it was a close competitive fight. They're training partners that kind of know each other, so, you know, maybe that played a factor. And then Jalen Turner took on Jamie Malarkey his last fight. In the first round, he circles with the jabs and a 1-2 body kick and then a right cross, and he's able to stuff the takedown. Then he lands a knee to the head, but then he eats an overhand left while he's chasing the clinch, gets rocked a little bit, a little too overzealous, but he composes himself. And then he gets clinched, but he's able to break with a knee to the body. Also, whenever Malarkey would kind of shoot in, he would frame off his face with the elbow, and I thought that was brilliant. And then he presses with the 1-2 from range. Then he eats some hooks, but he lands a straight right, and he eats a head kick, but he pushes him down. So he kind of comes into range, so doesn't eat the full impact. Then he digs to the body on the outside, and then he gets blast doubled toward the end. Can't really get up, but short time left in the round. I thought he already had the round locked up. Then the second round, he drops him with the right hook and on the inside, and he just gets a TKO. So, you know, it's kind of patient. He's not necessarily a first-round fighter. It was early on in the second round, but... And Jalen Turner minus 145, and Riddell plus 125. I've been going back and forth. You know, Riddell obviously has a lot more experience. Turner's still pretty green, pretty young. And what's he going to look like in the later rounds? But Riddell's coming off of a devastating knockout, and Jalen Turner knocks people out. And I think Riddell's going to give him trouble in the first round. I could see Turner losing the first round. I could see Riddell getting in there, landing some body shots, landing some hooks, maybe some uppercuts, maybe even taking him down once or twice. But I think Turner's going to be able to defend at some point. I think he's going to hit him with some big shots. I don't know, honestly. The more I talk about it, the more I doubt myself. But I really like Jalen Turner. I just have a feeling about him. The line's pretty close, and he's been finishing guys. So my pick here is Jalen Turner. Let's see. First fight of the main card, 135 pounds, men's bantamweight. You got Pedro Munhoz taking on Sean Watermelon Sugar O'Malley. Munhoz took on Dominic Cruz his last fight, instant classic. First round, he misses the head kick, and then he eats a step in, 1-2. Then he's able to duck the hook, and he drops him with a monstrous left hook, and then he does it again with a step in left. But Cruz is Dominic Cruz, and he recovered, and it was great. Then he lands some jabs on the fence, cuts off Cruz, but then he eats a counter right hook on the inside, and then he walks into a left hook from Cruz, and he eats a flurry inside the pocket. Then in the second round, he kept at bay with Cruz's jab and his feints, and he eats a 1-2, but he circles out of the way, keeps moving. Then he walks into some jabs, and then he eats a knee from Cruz and a hook flurry inside the pocket. Then in the third round, he misses some straight shots. Cruz is making a miss, and he eats a kick for his trouble. Then he lands a counter right hook toward the end. But, you know, first round, all Munhoz. Second and third round, Cruz is really just piecing him up at that point. Just the movement is a little too much for him. And Sean O'Malley took on Raulian Paiva his last fight. In the first round, he lands a front kick, and he backs out of range whenever Paiva comes towards him. And he pumps some jabs, and he just keeps moving. And then he lands a step in straight left, and then he lands a body kick at range, and then he drops him with the overhand right, and then a flurry with the overhand and a right hook especially in there, really doing the damaging blows, and gets the TKO. And just really patient and really good performance from him. And Paiva is no punk, not the greatest fighter, but, you know. And Sean O'Malley, minus 285. Munhoz, plus 240. The line's off, but it isn't. Like, you're getting the Sean O'Malley tax. Everybody knows who that guy is. People don't watch MMA or betting on him to win. So that kind of is what that is. But here's the thing. Munhoz has never been finished. And, you know, Sean O'Malley went the distance before pretty much with Matinho. Not the whole fight, obviously, but pretty close. And, you know, Sean O'Malley showed that he can carry his style over 3 rounds and doesn't really get too tired. And one of the big things I noticed that Munhoz was able to drop Cruz because Cruz was coming in, dipping with the overhand, with a looping shot. Sean O'Malley keeps everything tight, and I think O'Malley's going to be able to use the front kicks, keep him off of him, land down the pipe. So I'm going to go with Sean O'Malley. Knockout, I don't know, man. Here, check this out. Decision, Sean O'Malley decision plus 150. I think it's worth a shot. But Sean O'Malley, lock it in. Second fight on the main card, 170 pounds, certified banger. Robbie Lawler taking on Brian Bam Bam Barberena. You know, I mean, this is just great stuff. Lawler took on Nick Diaz his last fight, up at 185, mind you. In the first round, he gets the tie clinch, rips the body, but then he eats some hooks in a 1-2. While he's pressing forward, but he's kind of just eating these shots, doesn't really care. Then he eats a 1-2 at range, but then he lands some leg kicks, but he eats a 1-2 in return and some straight shots from Nick. But then he walks into some hooks to the body, but they both land when they're on the inside, you know, just kind of a firefight. And then he gets, whenever Nick's back's against the fence, but Lawler just keeps coming, man, and tires Nick out. Then in the second round, they're on the fence, and he rips the body, and then he lands a knee to the head, but he eats some uppercuts, but then he's able to land a body kick when he gets some space, and then he eats some straights while he's stalking toward the fence, but doesn't care. Third round, he lands some hooks against the fence, but then he eats a cross. Then he's able to drop him with a lead right hook whenever Nick comes forward, and Nick just kind of retires. Nick didn't want to get back up, so, you know, really good first round Robbie kind of needed to fill himself out, a little bit of a slow starter there, but you know, he looked the fastest he's ever looked the most aggressive, and you know, he's landing big shots and he was taking some big shots. So granted, Nick Diaz was off for like 7 years in their upper weight class, but he looked good, man. I think that's going to reinvigorate his spirit to fight. And then Brian Barberena took on Matt Brown in Columbus, Ohio. I was at that fight live. Amazing. In the first round, he's on the outside and he backs out of range and he wrestles with some straight shots, but he misses at first. Then he lands some inside leg kicks, but he gets foot swept and clinched and then taken down with the body lock. But he works his way back up against the fence. Pretty good get up game. But then he eats a body kick, but then he circles out, doesn't keep taking them. Then he lands a step in straight left and then a lead elbow when they're in the clinch. Then in the second round, he walks into a body kick, but he pumps some light leg kicks, really light, but still, just trying to do something. Then he eats a body hook and he gets doubled, but able to work his way back up. Doesn't stay down there too long. Then he eats that counter left hook while he's ripping to the body, and then he lands a lead elbow whenever he gets clinched, and he presses forward, but he gets taken down, but he's able to swim out. Matt Brown a little too high on the back, and then he lands some ground and pound on top, makes him pay, which I really like seeing that. Then he walks into some elbows, but then he lands some hooks inside the pocket, and again, it's a fight where they're just throwing at each other in the pocket. Then in the third round, he eats a hook off of his leg kick, but he gives up his back in the clinch, but nothing really crazy happens. Then he lands an elbow and some hooks in the pocket. Then he lands a step-in uppercut from range, but then he eats a right cross from Matt, and then he lands a straight flurry at the end. And that fight was so close, like the last 20 seconds really mattered, and I thought Brian Barberena got the better of that exchange, so that's huge. And the line very close, Barberena minus 105, Lawler minus 115, might even get closer by the time the fight starts. And I've been going back and forth on this one. This is another, I guess you'd call it like a legend fight, something like that, where Lawler's definitely way past his prime, but he's still got some gas in the tank. And Brian Barberena is never going to be champion, but he has really fun fights, and he makes it tough for anybody. So this should just be an all-out banger. I'm going to go with Robbie Lawler here. I thought about it a lot, but I just think Robbie's going to be able to turn it on stronger as the fight goes on. I think he might be a little more accurate than Matt Brown. I think, and heck, the activity, he had way more activity than Matt Brown. And I don't necessarily think a knockout, but I just think Lawler's going to do more activity than Brian Barberena and just land more. And I think he's going to get it done. I think he'll be able to clinch him up, land against the fence. I just was really impressed with how Lawler looked against Nick Diaz. But if you want to go under 2.5 plus 150, who knows? So, Robbie Lawler, lock it up. On to the feature fight of the main card, 185 pounds, men's middleweight. Got a very interesting matchup here. You got Sean's Tarzan Strickland taking on Alex Pereira. Pereira obviously knocked out Izzy in kickboxing, so this is basically a #1 contenders fight. They haven't said this, but I think it is. Anyway, Sean Strickland took on Jack Hermanson in his last fight. In the first round, he jabs, stands at range, eats some body kicks though, but then he slides out of range when Hermanson blitzes him. Then in the second round, he lands a double jab and then starts adding the right cross, starts adding shots onto the combinations. But he gets countered with a body kick, but he jabs straight to the body. Then he drops him with the right hook off of Hermanson's jab. But he actually just knocked him off balance. But, And then in the third round, he just circles, keeps on the outside, jabs, lands body kicks. That's pretty much it for the whole fight, to be honest. Now, the whole thing is like Pereira is strictly a kickboxer, so we're looking for takedowns. I didn't see any Hermanson was the wrestler in that fight, I guess, or the grappler, but Sean was able to defend them pretty well, so that's a good sign. And he also took Uriah Hall down a couple times. But Pereira took on Bruno Silva his last fight. In the first round, he lands some front kicks and leg kicks. Then he backs out of Bruno's 1-2. Then he lands a step in 1-2, but he circles, but he eats a hook on the return. But then he gets blast doubled at range, but he wall walks and gets up. And that's the #1 thing we're looking for is Pereira's get up game or his defense. And it looked a lot better than his last fight, so that's a positive for him. Then he's able to split the guard with the right cross and lands a flurry at the end of the first round. Second round, he backs up, lands some straights to the body, and then he lands a hook to the body. But then he lands a hook in the pocket, but he gets doubled again. But he gets right back up again, but he eats an uppercut when they're in the clinch. But then he's able to just turn him off and circle out of the clinch and didn't take too much damage there, so I was impressed with that a little bit. And then he misses a left hook, and he eats some counter hooks toward the end. Then in the third round, he backs out of range. He's able to defend the double with a full-on sprawl. Really good. And then he's able to keep the overhook in the clinch, and he breaks out of there. And then he lands some jabs at range, and he just starts ripping into the body. Then he rocks him with a check left hook, and then he stuffs a desperate takedown by Silva, and then he's able to land some knees to the body when they're inside the clinch, and then just lands a flurry on him. So I really like seeing that. He's making guys pay for shooting sloppy takedowns, which is really good. And then he's able to keep the wizard in the body lock. Whenever he gets body lock, keep that wizard, good defense. But he gives it up his back in the pocket exchange, just turns his back to him, but they're still on the feet. And then he lands a lead uppercut toward the end and rocks him. So a lot of improvement from him. Alex Pereira plus 100, Strickland minus 120. Line's really close. I think it's disrespectful to Sean Strickland. Dude, Strickland can wrestle. He's not the greatest wrestler. Doesn't wrestle a ton, but Pereira literally has no wrestling. It all comes down to how Pereira's defense is. And, you know, I just think Sean doesn't do anything spectacular. Doesn't necessarily have power, but he's dead accurate on his jabs. And I think if he can slow the pace down and, you know, and stop Pierre from coming on the inside, maybe clinch him up and just not let him do any damage, I think he can win. You know, I think people give Pierre too much credit, too much hype. Everybody wants him to win, so him and Izzy can fight, but that's not how reality works, man. So my pick here is Sean Strickland, even money. I think I might go the distance. Co-main event, 145 pounds, men's featherweight for the title. Alexander the Great Volkanovski taking on Max Blessed Holloway for the third time. This is my most anticipated matchup. I just really need to see how this ends here. And, you know, not going to do too much analytics because it's like, I just have a feeling Holloway's going to win. Holloway's a big underdog, and how can you not bet Max Holloway when he's a big underdog? The last two fights were razor close. First one, I think Volkanovski won. Second one, you know, flip a coin, you know. But just some quick things from the last fight, which was over 2 years. It was about 2 years ago. In the first round, Max is just pressuring right away. I like seeing that. And then Max rips to the body whenever he gets pressed. Then he landed the front kick. Then Max eats some leg kicks and a step-in hooks from Volk. But then he's able to land a step-in right. And then he drops him at the end of the round with the step-in head kick. It was beautiful, like 20 seconds, not even 20 seconds left to go. Then the second round, right at the end again, like 30 seconds, Max drops him with the uppercut whenever he gets pressed. And, like, Volk pretty much gets right back up, but still, dude, like, a round that close, definitely enough to steal a round. Then in the third round, Max lands a jump knee, and then Volk presses with some jabs and rips to the body. And then Volk lands a lead left hook on Max, but then Max is able to stop the double attempt, but then he gets clinched to the fence, but doesn't take any damage. He's able to break out of there, and then Volk lands a lead left hook, and then he lands a jab and a leg kick. And, you know, fourth and fifth kind of go like that. And the thing is, I think the difference is like in those later rounds, Volk just kind of steps to him a little bit more, if that makes any sense. And, you know, Max just can't find those big shots. And Max has never really wanted to drop anybody anyway. So it's just pretty interesting fight. And then besides his last fight, you know, Volk beat Brian Ortega and the Korean Zombie. But in the Ortega fight, he dominated the entire fight, except when he almost got submitted 2 times in the same round. But showed a championship heart and got out of there. But whenever Holloway and Ortega fought a little while ago, but Max Holloway got corner or doctor stoppage. So, and then Holloway destroyed Calvin Kattar on the feet. And then the Yair Rodriguez fight was a little more competitive, but Max showed some wrestling in there, which I really liked. And, you know, Yair Rodriguez is a wild dude. Who knows how he'd match up with Volkanovski? So I think they both kind of have equal momentum. The momentum's going back and forth whenever they had their other fights. It's really close to call, but Max Holloway is a plus 170 underdog. Volkanovski minus 200. Got to go with Max Holloway, man. The best is blessed. Plus 170, cash it. Main event of the evening, 185 pounds, men's middleweight. You got Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya taking on Jared, the killer gorilla, Cannoneer. And, you know, Cannonier's the next guy up, pretty much. But interesting matchup here. Israel Adesanya took on Robert Whittaker his last fight, their second fight. First round, he made some calf kicks, backs out of the blitz attempt by Whittaker. And then from range, he drops him. It would drop him with a jab, just standing there. and then he jabs him, lands a body kick. Then in the second round, he lands a right hook counter off of Rob's double jab. That's the one thing. Rob utilized a double jab and was landing on Izzy, was getting inside on Izzy, but that's pretty much all he did, besides a couple takedowns here and there. But, you know, relatively safe fight for Izzy, I think it was. But he eats a double jab, then he walks, but then Izzy eats a double jab, and then walks into another jab. But then he lands an inside leg kick, and he gets doubled, but he gets right back up into the clinch position. Then he lands a left head kick. Third round, he eats a step in jab, but then he's able to land his counter hook. And then he lands some leg kick, and he stuffs a double from Rob. And then he gets doubled off of his head kick, and he gives his back, but he gets right up to the fence, gets toward that fence. You can't take Izzy down against the fence. Gets out of there, and then he lands a hard leg kick near the fence. You can see Rob wince there, and then he's able to slide out of the jab range, and then he eats a double jab, but then he lands a body kick. And then fourth round, he slides back, lands a leg kick. He gets doubled just standing in the pocket there for a second, and he gets backpacked, but gets Rob off relatively easily. Immediately fights the choke hand, and Rob just kind of jumps off him too, so it's kind of weird, but nothing really came of it. Then he lands a leg kick off of Rob's jab, and then he eats an uppercut in the clinch break. Then in the fifth round, he able to cut off the cage, and he lands a body kick on Rob. And then, but he eats a step-in jab inside the pocket. But then he jabs, and he gets doubled, but he stands back up, and you know, really nothing. Is he just a master of range? That's pretty much all it came down to. And you know, Rob took him down a couple times, but couldn't keep him down. And you know, it seemed like Rob was focused on that most of the time. He was landing with that double jab, but again, that's pretty much all he did. So, and Izzy had a counter, and then the leg kicks and the body kicks. And then Cannonier took on Derek Brunson in his last fight. In the first round, he lands a step in straight right. He lands a jab, but he eats a 1-2 from Brunson. But then he eats some step in straight lefts. But then he gets dropped with a check right hook in the pocket. And again, this could have been set up because Brunson was just constantly shooting, like even desperate takedowns. Izzy's obviously not going to shoot, but this was his last fight. And you know, I didn't want to go back 2 years or a year and a half to whenever Cannonier fought Whitaker. So this was his last fight. So. But, you know, he did get dropped, so whenever he was rushing him, and that's when Izzy catches people, so keep that in mind. Then in the second round, he lands a right hook off the clinch break, then he lands some leg kicks and a knee to the body. Then he's able to back out of the hook range from Brunson, and he's able to block the hooks from Brunson, then he lands a 1-2 of his own, then he's able to get the step in right hook, and then he lands an elbow, and then a back fist, and then he clinches, and then he gets another elbow, and then an overhook, and then elbow, and he gets the overhook and pushes him down on the ground, just mercilessly elbows the shit out of him, gets a TKO. So, yeah, dude. Pretty wild fight. Cannonier's got power. Paulo Costa had power as well. So, Cannonier, he's plus 360, and Izzy's minus 450. Honestly, I think this is kind of lined correctly. Basically, Cannonier has power. He doesn't have wrestling, and he got dropped whenever he rushed Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson is a wrestler, so Izzy is a master striker. So, and you know, that's how he knocked out Paulo Costa when he got rushed. So I see it going Izzy's way 100%. Maybe Cannonier clips him with something, but I just see Izzy maintaining distance, keeping him at range, jabbing him up, leg kicks, the usual. How long is the fight gonna go? I don't know. I think Cannonier might pour his heart and soul into this fight, and it might get clipped and end early, but we'll see. But anyway, I got Izzy. That line's ridiculous, but you want to go Izzy by KO, plus 150, not a bad option. But is your Adesanya my official pick? All right, everybody, thanks for riding with me. I appreciate it. Last weekend, a little shaky, but turned out profitable. I feel really good about this weekend. It's lined correctly, but I think I have the right underdogs. Want to go 12-0. Let's hope. Check the description, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all this stuff. Follow me, message me, ask me questions, give me advice. I'm all here for it. If you could like, share, subscribe, it'd really mean a lot to me. Leave a comment down below. Just let me know how it's going. I'd appreciate it. Anyway, guys, let's see some superstars be born. Let's see some upsets. Let's see some violence, and let's see some profits. Good luck, everyone.